What is up YouTube, and today we have another balance adjustment video for you guys. This balance adjustment will be taking place in about 2 weeks on the 9th of May, as you can see at the top of your screen here. And this patch is pretty big. So the first thing that we're going to notice is Moonlight 5-star changes. We have Blood Moon Haste. So people have been complaining about this unit needing buffs since the beginning of time, honestly. And he's finally getting one, and you're going to see that his buffs are actually very, very good, which is very surprising. I think Smilegate did a great job with his buffs. It's mostly a rework, to be honest. You'll see for yourself that it is a good change. It'll probably make him pretty strong, I'd say, right? At least decent. Next, we have Sage, Ball, and Cezanne getting a slight change to make him more consistent. We have 4 5-star RGB units. We have Ravi, Kane, Bellona, and Celine. Pretty good changes for, I'd say, like maybe 1 or 2 of them. The other ones don't really matter. And we have a 4-star Moonlight getting buffed in last piece, Karin, mostly because she's kind of just outshined by Zahak right now. But you're going to see with these changes, she'll fit kind of a similar niche still, but we'll be able to do different things, which is very nice. Then we have 2 5-star artifacts getting changed. We have Alexa's Basket and Abyssal Crown just getting a straight up buff. So let's actually dive into the biggest buff of the patch for Blood Moon Haste. And you're going to see Blood Moon Haste is a lot better now. I'd say he's going to be pretty meta, pretty strong. And that's because his S1 is being changed, right? First, you're going to see that it will actually activate a extra attack if you actually dispel a buff. So if you attack a target with a buff and your S1 dispels that buff, like before, you'll activate Bloody Retribution, which is a single target attack that will recover health of all allies, and also the amount recovered and damage dealt will scale with your own HP. And the damage is also increased in this. And this is very nice because of the fact that before you didn't have any healing as Blood Moon Haste, and you had to kind of run him on a healing artifact known as Celestine, where every time you attack, you heal your ally. But now, because he has healing built in, you can actually run a different artifact, which will make him a lot more flexible. And the damage dealt being increased is very nice, because if you actually look at his S2, you're going to see that all of his attacks now, not just his S3, are going to penetrate defense, and they can't trigger crits. So, you didn't build crit on him anyways, but I guess to kind of balance him and not make him super OP with his S1 damage, they had to put this in, the passive. But now your S1 will penetrate defense 100%, which will make him very good into defense stacking users, such as like Ikarina, Arya, also like Abyssal Euphine, even Lionheart Sirmia, although you can proc Lionheart Sirmia's passive with your S1. But I guess you could just attack an enemy with no buffs, and you can kind of avoid it, which is very nice. But this S2 giving you that full penetration is pretty insane, because his damage was also not that bad before. He just didn't have that much utility. But you're going to see he does have a lot of utility now. So when an ally dies, he'll actually grant a barrier and immunity for 2 turns. It used to be 1, which was pretty terrible. But you'll also grant yourself Blood Aura. Now, Blood Aura is a 2-turn buff. I believe it can't be dispelled, and it will activate every 4 turns. And basically, it's a speed and effectiveness buff to help you strip the enemy buffs more, and also to just increase your speed to cycle faster, right? And you're going to see that this is very important because his S3 also got reworked. So you're going to see it's a full dispel, which is also very nice always. And you're going to see that when the enemy is defeated, you will res all dead allies before granting immortality for 1 turn. So they remove the decreases damage suffered by allies because it doesn't actually stack with some certain night artifacts and some effects. So because of that, they just removed it. It was pretty useless, honestly, because you almost always run a knight now in standard team compositions. You're going to see that when an enemy is defeated, revives all dead allies before granting immortality for 1 turn. Super nice, right? It's like APOC Ravi's S3 or even Spirit Eye Celine's S3. And you're going to see when the caster is granted this Blood Aura, which is gained by an ally dying, you will increase the damage dealt by 100%. The damage dealt will also scale with your max HP, which it already did. And you're going to see the damage dealt is increased. This actually won't heal him anymore or actually heal your allies, but keep in mind you have the S1 actually healing now. So his healing is in his S1, which makes it way more consistent, because in the past you really just held onto your S3 for super long. But yeah, you get way more healing over time now for your team. And also the S3 damage being super high is pretty scary, right? If you kill an enemy besides Blood Moon Haste first, he gets this Blood Aura, he's very fast. Then he S3s, kills a unit on your side, penetrating all the defense, by the way, and revives that ally with immortality. So pretty scary. I think he's going to be a pretty solid pick in the meta. He's very good into defense heavy units. And also in general, he just seems like a pretty scary threat, because if you kill him first, you're wasting a lot of resources onto a unit that could actually, heal his team. And also, usually he's pretty tanky because he's a Soul Weaver, right? Because he actually will penetrate the target's defense, right, fully, and cannot trigger crits. You're most likely going to stack him on health and like some effect resist, pretty much almost all of your stats into it. So that makes him very bulky, and you're going to waste a lot of time trying to kill him. But if you ignore him and you kill a different ally or an enemy, I guess, you're going to proc his blood aura, and then you're just going to get, killed right back with a one-shot S3, and then that ally gets revived. So it's a lot of decision making now you have to make around playing against Blood Moon Haste. For me, I personally will definitely build him. He seems very strong now. I wouldn't say he's like super broken, like ML Politis and stuff like that, but definitely playable and definitely going to be a decent pick in the meta. Now, looking at Sage Ball and Cezanne, the other ML5s are getting buffed. Basically, it was 100% chance to dispel one buff and an 85% chance to sleep. Now it's just 100% outright. This is very, very nice. There's a lot of games I've lost when using Sage Ball and Cezanne as a cleave counter, where he just doesn't sleep and you just lose. So because of this, it makes him way more consistent. 15% is a lot, right? So as you guys know, you guys always get 15% in, right? So because of the RNG nature, they actually put this to 100%, although you can still get resisted, right, by the 15% effect resist built in. So looking at the RGB 5 stars, you'll see first off we have Ravi. You'll notice that his S1 or her S1 will always crit now, and the healing is also going to be increased. And also you'll see the stun is removed. So instead of the stun, you'll get extra healing, and you'll also always crit, which is going to be nice if you actually want to build her way more tanky. Also, you'll see that her S2 is also changed. Basically, instead of having this stacking attack and effectiveness that you used to have, which took forever to ramp up, you will actually get attack proportional to your max HP, and this rate of attack does not change. So even if you get injured, your attack will still be the same. That's what it means. So you can just pretty much build her on full health, full crit chance, or not full crit chance, full crit damage, because you're going to see that her skills always crit now. And you're also going to see after you get crit, you'll dispel one debuff from the caster. This is huge because Ravi, Fire Ravi when she was good, and also APOC Ravi, they really abused like Crimson Seed, I'd say, just because of the fact that it actually cleansed you of a debuff. Now you have that built in where if you get crit, you'll dispel a debuff. So it's way harder to actually lock her down, which is pretty insane. Albeit you can only dispel a debuff once every turn, but still very nice. It'll make her a lot harder to lock down. And Ravi's biggest weakness for PvP, as you can see her, she does a lot of damage, she's very tanky, but the thing is, like, she's easy to crowd control. So because of that, having this passive built in will make her insane. Also, having a unit that doesn't get affected by injuries really with her damage, that scales with max HP, is going to be pretty crazy. Next, we have her S3. First off, the fighting spirit you need is higher, but the damage dealt is going to be increased. It already did a lot of damage, but now it's going to do even more. You're going to see now, before it only had a chance to stun and penetrate a defense. Now it doesn't penetrate defense, which is going to be maybe less damage overall, but you'll actually have injuries now. So this will apply AoE injuries that will scale with the damage, which is pretty crazy, right? So against a lot of health scaling bruisers, she'll be even better because, she has injuries now AoE, which is pretty crazy. And this will also always crit. So you can pretty much put her on a 0% crit chance build, high crit damage, and also high health. And I do believe you're going to probably run her on some speed and counter sets. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like Ravi's with like, 26k health and like 300% crit damage or something like crazy like that. Because I think that's going to be the best way to play her, because you don't need any crit chance or even attack anymore, because you get attack from your HP that doesn't get affected by injuries. I think it's a pretty good buff overall for PvP. For PvE, it doesn't really matter too much, honestly, because, you don't get injured in PvE and injuries don't matter. So mostly going to be a buff for PvP. She's already pretty decent in PvE. Now for her exclusive equipments, you're going to see that, instead of having that debuff now, you just have extra damage on your S1. And instead of having that chance to put unbuffable, you have extra damage on your S3. I think the extra damage on the S1 will be the best because it will also heal you, right? So most likely you'll take that one or the other option as well. Now looking at Kane's buffs, some people are saying it's a nerf, but basically they're making it so that you don't actually bleed with your S1 right away. You have an AoE bleed instead when you're enraged. So actually, I think overall you maybe will put less bleeds on the enemy, just single target wise. But for AoE, of course, you'll do more. Now looking at his S2, you're going to see before it was after an ally attacks, if the target was inflicted with bleed, you gained fighting spirit to get yourself rage. Now it's just a debuff, so it makes him a lot more flexible. You'll be able to run him with more units. I think this buff doesn't really matter, to be honest, because Kane was just a rift unit, and I think they're trying to make him more than that by changing, the requirements needed around him. Before, you needed like a full specific bleed team with like haste and Surin to actually make him work. Now he'll be fine with just, defense breakers and just regular team comps. But I still think his kit is mostly for PvE, and I think you're not going to really use him in PvP at all. You're probably just going to use him in like Golem and stuff like that. So maybe we'll see him in Golem or like Earth Expedition or Raid. But I think this buff doesn't really matter overall. And next we have Bellona's buffs. So Bellona's S1 is being changed. Soulburn is being moved here to actually give her an extra turn instead of the extra damage on your S3. And then you'll see your S2 is just doing more damage now, even if the enemies are, less in numbers. And also you'll see her S3 will actually be changed to have a 100% chance to decrease defense, which was granted if you have the exclusive equipment for her. And you'll see that the damage dealt when Razor Fan is triggered by your S1 is increased. So yeah, pretty cool changes. I don't think it'll change her too much just because, you know, for PvP, green DPSs, Gala Lilius is pretty good, Laya is pretty good, Ramurum is pretty good. I think it's pretty hard to build her fast enough to compete with those units, so I don't think it'll change too much. But for PvE, it's definitely a good buff. And you'll also see that, you know, like I said, the increased chance that you got from the exclusive equipment for your defense break is now removed because it's already 100%. And you'll see that the cooldown is reduced, which is going to be very nice for PvE to keep her as a defense breaker. Next, we have Celine's buffs. So she'll just get flat damage now instead of from crits, just overall, as you can see on her S1. And also her S1, when you use it, will grant you stealth. Also, she gets stealth at the start of battle for 2 turns, which was not a thing before. You had to actually use your S2 after a proc to get it. So this makes her a lot better into Zeos and like single target damage dealers, right? And you'll also see that she gets 30% CR now, which is extremely strong. Instead of 20%, extra 10% really matters a lot. You can cut back her speed a bit for more damage. The damage is also increased on top of that. And you get 10 souls. I think this is the biggest thing. The 10 souls is probably the biggest thing for me with the stealth at the start of battle. Because 10 souls actually is a lot. It can really change the battle because we all know how powerful soul burns can actually be. Now, looking at her exclusive equipment, you'll see that it used to give her stealth for 2 turns when using blink. Obviously, you don't need that because you get it at the start of battle. This was a lot more conditional because of the fact that, you know, people could just not proc your blink and just kill her before the stealth procs. And it's being changed to a stun for 1 turn. Now, I don't know if you'd take this because with the other exclusive equipment, you can actually choose to attack the highest attack enemy, which is very strong. But now if you use the stun one, it can be better against, I guess, like teams that don't really have a lot of damage, if that makes sense, or units that will survive the S2. So this is going to be a random stun, but I don't know if it'll be good because you need effectiveness. So honestly, I don't think this really matters. I think you'll still run the one that targets the highest attack enemy. Now for the last unit getting buffed, last piece, Karin, they're actually changing her Phantom Strike, her S2, which will actually push back CR. This will make it so that you can use her as an opener. So unlike Zahak, who is mostly there to kill evasion units, you can use her as an opener to push back like high health opening units if you build her fast enough, which is very nice. Also, her damage is being increased, so you can actually put her on a higher speed build and maybe lower her stats a little bit. Then we have her S3 being changed pretty heavily. So her S3 will actually not dispel 2 debuffs from herself anymore, but it didn't really matter because you were going first anyways. And what's being changed now is you still get the attack buff, you still get Phantom Sword. If you kill an enemy with Phantom Sword active, you change into Neo Phantom Sword. But Phantom Sword now will not only ignore damage sharing, but it will ignore damage reduction. So this is huge because things like Aureus and stuff like that, I guess Aureus is damage sharing, but things like Adamant Shield and stuff like that will be ignored, which is huge. That's actually going to be like a 16% damage buff against teams with a Knight with Adamant Shield. And also you're going to see with your Neo Phantom Sword is the same thing, and the cooldown is going down. So pretty huge. The damage is also going up for your Neo Phantom Sword, so definitely going to be a huge buff for the last piece, Karin. I don't know if it'll make her super strong, but definitely make her a lot better at one-shotting. And because you're actually doing more damage now with all your skills basically, you are going to actually be able to build her on way higher speed because she's getting extra damage on her Phantom Strike, her main damaging ability, and also more damage from her Neo Phantom Sword. So I think they're trying to push her into a higher speed unit to make her more of an opener that has the potential to one-shot, because she's also getting the CR pushback to deal with units that can actually be very fast but are very tanky, so you can actually disable them. So pretty cool change overall. Then next up, looking at the artifacts, the first one is Alexa's Basket. What's being changed is the crit chance is being removed now, and instead it's going to be replaced with a 35 to 70% chance to get attack buff. So this way you have pretty much almost guaranteed to get either attack buff or greater attack buff, and it makes it way more consistent because crit chance buff didn't really matter because most of the units that use Alexa's Basket were at 100% anyways. So because of this, you just change it to attack buff and greater attack buff. Now you have ways to actually just do a lot more damage no matter what. I think it's a pretty good change. Alexa's Basket used to be super broken on like Arbiter Vildred, but now it's not really used as much, but I think this will make it a lot more viable. You can pretty much just use this on any thief that wants to go fast. I think like Fire Kayron might use this if you want to put him on a fast build, for example. Any thief, honestly, like Assassin Sid will be very good with this, right? And even Assassin Cooley. So I think this is a pretty good change. It makes it way more consistent with that RNG aspect still being somewhat in play for the greater attack buff. Next, we have Abyssal Crown. They're just upping the chance of stun. Not really too sure why. I guess it's just good because it kind of is a low chance. But the thing is, this works on AoE. So if you have Irons on Abyssal Crown now, you have a 55% chance of stun on every single enemy, which is pretty crazy. So I think this will be very toxic. But okay, I don't really think it needed a buff because it was already pretty strong as an artifact. This will definitely buff like Irons indirectly and also Fire Poultice. So yeah, these are the changes for this patch. Pretty excited mostly for ML Haste, right? The thing is, you know, people were saying, oh, Albedo and Irons didn't get buffed yet. They definitely need a buff, which I agree with. But I think they will probably hotfix buff them later if we complain more, honestly, because they're pretty weak. So as soon as those changes are announced, if they do get announced, I'll let you guys know. But for now, this is the balance patch coming on the 9th of May. If you guys found this video interesting or helpful, make sure you guys hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next video.